Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me on this Wednesday, May 18th in the Locher Room. I'm Alan Locher. Taylor Miller is here today to look back at her career and time playing Nina Cortlandt on All My Children. Taylor landed the role of Nina just 2.5 months after her arrival in the Big Apple. Taylor's pairing with Peter Bergman, Dr. Cliff Warner, was one of the first super couples on soaps. She was voted one of the sexiest women on daytime TV by none other than Oprah Winfrey. Taylor left her 30-year career behind and made a transition into the health and wellness field. I am truly, really excited to speak with her today. Please welcome to the Locher Room, Taylor Miller. Hey, Taylor.
Hi, Alan. Thanks so much for asking me to come here.
Oh, please. My pleasure. I didn't grow up on All My Children, but I certainly knew who Cliff and Nina were. There
Oh,
is no when you're a soap fan, you sort of know all the legends. I'll actually read from a fan. Daniel Sheridan Miller said, "Legend doesn't begin to describe her. Taylor Miller's pairing with Peter Bergman's Cliff was phenomenal. Sheer magic. Those were the days."
it was. It was. The whole show was magic, though. We were not the only thing that was magic on the show. We had amazing people in our storyline, but every single storyline, ABC Daytime at that time was brilliant at weaving and teasing and revealing, and it was just wonderful. I loved it. I was so lucky.
That's awesome. Well, we'll come back to All My Children in a minute, but I loved hearing you grew up in New Orleans, correct?
I did. New Orleans,
What was
Louisiana. So I'm a Southern Belle, although New Orleans isn't really Belle territory, but
what is one of your favorite things about New Orleans?
I love the food in New Orleans. My mom died 2 years ago, the day before
I'm
COVID.
sorry.
She was able to, as she said, I finally made the exit ramp. One time she had kidney failure for some kind of prescription drug she was on. And then she was like, you know what, Taylor, I missed the exit ramp that time. And so I know when she was like locked and loaded to go to heaven, that she was so happy. And she was one of the reasons why I always went back to New Orleans. My husband's from New Orleans also. His dad and his dad's wife, Judy, those are people who we still love and visit in New Orleans. So family is really synonymous with New Orleans. And the colors, the smell, the mildew when you go to the airport. I love New Orleans. The coffee, PJ's coffee, all of that stuff. It's the best.
I do love New Orleans. What's your favorite meal there?
My father-in-law has this woman, Epsy, who comes to his house and cooks when we are there because he'll give a big party. And she makes crawfish etouffee. And that was the meal that he was having at his house the night that Eli brought me home to meet the family. A gazillion years ago now.
I
We
love
met
that.
at
That's
a
great.
party that neither one of us had been invited to. I was home for Christmas. Eli was home for Christmas. We both went to this party. And when we met, it was like that, just like in soap operas, right?
Yeah.
And that feeling of like, and then he walked by me and I thought, oh, I know him. And I thought, I know him. And then he put his hand around my waist and I thought, I do know him. It was just like a soap opera.
That's
And at
great.
that point in time, I moved out to LA. And so I wasn't on All My Children at that point in time. I was trying to make it big in LA.
Hollywood.
Hollywood.
But you attended Tulane. What
Yep,
was your choice of study when you were there?
I majored in history because I was going to be a lawyer, act. Like I was going to act in the courtroom. And then ended up not doing that. And I ended up being a model. And then I was acting. And then I went from acting in Dallas, Texas to acting in New York. And then, it started like the whole progression of events. We were talking about that a little bit when we were talking before we started, and just the whole progression of events that kind of got set into place.
Got the ball
I didn't
rolling.
know, right?
Yeah. What was the law idea about? Was that something from your mom and dad, or?
No, it was more the drama of the courtroom. You know, I could see
Interesting.
myself in stilettos and a tight skirt and just really having like a little pencil behind my ear and then just like going after the person in a
I love that. Was there a lawyer you remember seeing that triggered that, or?
no, it's all in my mind. That's the great thing about being an actress is it can all be in my mind. When I was on my tour, I actually got a chance to like put some of that stuff like out there too.
I love that. That is great. Did you like modeling?
You know, no. Yes, but no. I mean, I was there and it was a little bit of a skeevy industry. And one time I went to do a bowling shirt catalog and they wanted me to like do a cheesecake photo with just the bowling shirt
Mm-hmm.
shirt on. And I said, I don't think I'm going to do that. And he goes, well, everybody does. And I said, well, you can call my agent and you can ask them about that. And then they dropped it. So that kind of stuff, you know, that wasn't
Mm,
my favorite thing. But I didn't do it, as you had mentioned before, and I didn't do it for very long before I got
right.
on tour. Yeah.
And how did you arrive in the Big Apple?
My cousin and her husband lived there. So I had a place to stay. And
Always helpful in New York City, isn't it?
always helpful. And I had done a play in Dallas, and some of those people had gone to someplace in Texas. They'd gone to a school in Texas, and then they had gone up to New York. And then some of those people like Bobo Bates, Kathy Bates, and Sigourney Weaver, those were some of their classmates, right? And then we would go to a party. That didn't turn into any kind of a path for me, but yeah, I was hanging out with some actors in New York. It was fun. But none of the people that I went up there, none of them had, I don't think they had like a job that was continuous like mine.
Mm-hmm.
Some
And
of the
you
people,
arrived March of 79,
yep, March
and
1st.
then April 1st, I believe your audition took place.
Yeah, April Fool's Day. And
Don't
I
you
could not
remember?
find the studio. I called my
You could
agent. Like,
you
I'm
couldn't
here.
find
Yeah. And
you
it's like
couldn't find it?
a block and it has a marquee on it, right? That says all my children. But I'm like new to New York, right? They took a bus there. And then when
I
I
love
was
that.
in, they said, you got to quit wrinkling your nose. And I thought, okay, I knew exactly what they were talking about because I did like this video for I don't know, something. And I saw the video and I saw that I wrinkled my nose. So I'm glad they corrected that.
Did you have to screen test with somebody?
I did. I don't remember his name.
Okay.
What I do remember is that he took off his glasses and he wiped them with like a hanky that was in his pocket. You know, did one of these things, right? And then wiped them. And then when he put them back on, the hanky had gotten stuck like in the hinge right here and was hanging down his face. And I was having a hard time not laughing. And Cheryl Hoffman was the director. And she said, is there something wrong? I said, no, there's not. I forgot my line. Can I start again? And then he took the hanky out of his glasses and we went again. And I went against everything that they told me to do. They told me that Nina wore ruffly clothes. And I thought, I don't look good in ruffles. I'm not going to wear ruffles. So my mom had given me this very sweet Albert Napon dress that I had thought was too sweet for me. And I put that on and then I put my hair back, long hair back, and I just looked quietly elegant and very nice.
I love that. Love that.
Yeah, I know, right?
And you, is it true you also later auditioned with James Mitchell?
Did I ever audition with James? No, James was already
What?
on the show.
Oh, he was. Okay, because I thought I
Yeah,
heard that.
because I went, no, I went just to that one audition, and I did not hear from them until middle of June. And
Oh, wow.
I struck a deal. I said, you know, if I don't get this job, I'll go back to Texas and I'll have children and I'll join the junior league. And somewhere along the way, somebody went,
give her that contract. Give her that contract.
That's not something that she'd necessarily be good at. So anyway.
And do you remember stepping foot on set your first day?
I remember, yes, James and I were both very nervous. And then I remember Peter Bergman really worked hard. Like he was already being invited on all of these public appearances.
Mm-hmm.
And he would invite me to come too. He would mention my name. Why don't you bring Taylor too? So I think he helped establish me. We had chemistry. I mean, there's just no doubt about that. We had chemistry.
Do you remember meeting Peter for the first time?
I remember him coming to my hospital room, but I was very sick. I'd had an appendectomy, I think, or I was still having problems with my appendix. So I can't really necessarily remember him because I was in so much pain. But yeah, I do remember that was in a hospital room.
I love that. I love that. I mean, you worked with some incredible people.
Yes.
James, Peter, Jillian, Elizabeth Lawrence.
Yeah.
Can you share memories of all?
Alan, it's so funny. I didn't think I was really going to be able to talk about this because it was so long ago, but I swear it was one of the best times of my life. James Mitchell walked me down the aisle. He became a very good friend of mine. And always.
And you mean your real life aisle.
Yeah. And then Jillian was, I think, one of my spiritual guides. She did all of these readings on the body, and she was a very spiritual, mystical person. And she introduced me to that kind of world and would suggest like a retreat to go on or something like that. And I just love that. Elizabeth Lawrence always was meticulous with details of the scene. Like I have the keys in my left hand, or, she just taught me some of the, like how to be more meticulous. And it was great. And every single person that they ever paired me up with, there was chemistry. So there's just nothing to be said there was not one bad day ever that I had on all my children.
That's
amazing. It was a very well run show. The storyline was maybe catered to me. I'm not sure. But it was magic. It really was. ABC daytime at its finest.
For sure. And Cliff and Nina, like I said, were and are one of the most popular couples of all time. Is there a moment in your mind when you knew that the pairing, that pairing was creating a huge impact with the fans?
Well, we would go out on those public appearances, and there would be thousands of people there. One time we were in a stretch limousine that was actually driving into the mall. And I turned to whoever it was, it might have been Peter, and just said, this is like being a rock star. There were so many people who just wanted to be there and see us in person. And, only a few people could get close to the stage, but they were just packed into the malls. So much fun.
Yeah, I mean, those were the days when those appearances, thousands would come out. Thousands. Yeah. When you look back on the pairing of you two, besides chemistry, or I mean, I guess it is chemistry and writing, what do you think made it work so well?
I just think that I don't know. I think those things are intangible. And Joan D'Ancheco, who was the casting agent at that time, I just think was brilliant. I think she did it in every single storyline on the show. She found people who were meant on some level to be together. And they, Peter and I we just did a talk show a couple of years ago. I forget. Oh, they brought me on to surprise him. And we still are very good friends. I mean, I love Peter. And so, yeah, I mean, that's something that and that was such a special time in my life. I think that and we're the only two people who aren't, well, I haven't heard from Jillian in a long time, but we're the only two people from that storyline who are still around. So that I know of. It's very
Right.
special.
Well, one of your fans, Eric, says, Ms. Miller, you look like my Aunt Claire, both beautiful. Question, if you remember this, the Cortland Masquerade Ball is one of my favorites. What are your memories of that daytime event? And was Palmer's Doberman pincher nice?
That was one of the best scenes that, thank you for bringing up that scene. He was in the barn, and turns out it was my mom, Daisy, who played by Gillian Spencer. She was hiding in, the top of the barn, and he was there with a Doberman pincers. James was so great with like action, right? With the Doberman pincers just pulling at the leashes, and he's like, Daisy, Daisy. And they're like, ah, ah. It was fantastic scene. It was that was one of the best scenes. You're absolutely right, Eric. It was fantastic.
I love that. I love that.
And that
Damon, yeah.
I'm sorry. That was when I got laryngitis, and I still had to do all of those scenes. I think it was my 18th birthday party where they gave Nina, the diabetic, a gigantic heart birthday cake. Yes. Mary McFadden dress. Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah. I cut. Casey Guy sent me these photos. I should have kept the cake in the picture. I cropped it a little, but that's so funny.
It was enormous. Yeah.
That is so funny. Damon had said how I cried when I thought Nina was killed in a plane crash with Steve Jacoby. Mm-hmm. And Donald was asking, can you talk about working with Dak? It was Dak who played Steve.
Yeah, Dak Rambo. Yes, he was, we had chemistry too. And it was, I remember that was when Cliff heard the two of us. Do you remember the hallway scene? Cliff heard the two of us in the bedroom, and he kind of pressed his ear to the door and then saw my scarf on the ground and held it to him and then walked away because he knew that I was cheating on him. Oh, well. I explained that to fans by saying, well, he works all the time. What are you going to do?
What are you going to do? Got to have good story too, right?
But then we got that, Peter and I got back together again. So we always did.
You always did. Yeah, you had a few weddings. What do you remember about the first beautiful wedding?
That was really stupendous. And that was when Sybil Thorne had told Cliff, Dr. Clifford Warner, that she was pregnant. So he came to marry me thinking, ruh-roh, and he looked a little worried when I was putting his ring on I remember his finger was a little bit swollen, so just trying to put his ring on his finger. That was really beautiful, and had the signature mystery of ABC, because that's when they introduced Monique Joinville as a mysterious person who had come into my life, because she had across her face, she had a veil.
The drama back then, I loved it.
Right?
A Friday cliffhanger, was the best back in the 80s.
Yeah.
Totally the best. And you said it earlier, but soaps were certainly in their heyday when you made your mark in Pine Valley. How did you handle that, sort of instant fame so early in your 20s?
You know what? How did I handle that? I think that there were moments when I was on the set, as Susan Lucci led us all to be just totally professional, and she did not do that star mentality or anything like that. So we were all just on our set, doing our jobs, knowing our lines, and doing a good job. And for me, the way it manifested on the set, I think I mentioned this to you earlier, that one of the directors would say, so what are you going to do there? And I'm like, I don't know. I said, all right. I said, okay. And then when the prop person threw this doll down the stairs, and I had to pretend that it was baby Bobby falling down the stairs, then It's like it was all real. They knew I was going to be able to do that on the night. You know, when that red light came on, they knew that I was going to be able to carry it off. There's never any doubt in their mind or in my mind. It was awesome.
That's gotta, give you a nice feeling.
Yeah, to be really good at something. And they dressed me beautifully. Carol Lukin was our costume designer, and she dressed me in, to begin with, Nippon, and then in Armani after that. I mean, she just did a really good job of finding a look for each one of the characters. And ABC spent a lot of money on the
Back
show.
then. Yeah.
I think they had a lot of money coming in. So.
The 80s, all of the soap costumes were phenomenal.
Yeah.
Because they really put the money, into that. What are some of your, fondest memories? Anything that you sometimes always look back on?
Everything. I swear to you, Ellen, it's like everything that happened on that show was, there were scenes that were so heart-wrenching. And then there were scenes that were so, I remember when Cliff and Nina ran into each other on Martha's Vineyard. And he was jogging and I was walking through the dunes, and we spotted each other, and we just, it was so apparent that we were still in love. It was so well written. And we were featured. I mean, what's not to like about that? We were featured.
It worked a lot, yeah.
I remember one year I negotiated working 5 days a week. I forgot to give myself vacations in my negotiations, right? But we had a lot of great storyline and great sets, everything. It was really, it was magical.
Well, that's, we were talking backstage. I mean, you said there's a lot of gratitude for the show.
Much gratitude. I forgot that at one point in time because I criticized ABC and the way they were running soap operas, which is so arrogant that I would do that. And knowing nothing about running soap operas. But as I was reflecting on that, I also thought that getting the role of All My Children was something that changed my life. Being able to play Nina, to go from obscurity to being part of such a fun family. And the people who worked at 1330 Avenue of the Americas, ABC headquarters, those people were very knowledgeable about soap operas and the weaving of the storyline, and they would come over and visit us. It was very much of a family. Remember, it was ABC Family, right?
Yeah. I forgot.
Yeah, and yeah, we would travel. When I left the show and I was out in LA, Josie Emmerich came out to LA to do something, and she had me to lunch just to keep track on, how was I doing and everything. And it was just very kind and very loving. And when I think about being in New York for 1 month when I had the audition, and then I was on the show by the middle of June, I mean, I was living with my cousin, but I really didn't have a life. My life was going on modeling calls and then going on, acting auditions, right? But from that kind of singular life, I got plunged into the Cortlandt family, right? With those marvelous actors who became my dear friends, and was given some of the best storyline in all of daytime.
For sure.
And then I don't know that I ever would have met my husband if he hadn't gone past me. He watched All My Children, and he went past me and he talked to his brother, and he goes, "Garner, that's a puppy." He goes, "What?" And he called it All My Puppies. So he goes, "That's a puppy," right? And he invited me to dinner at his dad's house that night. He just, it was magical, just like Nina's life. I was out in LA trying to make it big, and then I left that and I went to another world and went back to New York so I could be closer to my future husband. And then, it just turned out to be, we have 2 children. They're wonderful kids. And it's one of those lives where you're like, wow, this is so cool. I was working for Shell Oil Company and I was a clerical worker. It's like, and I was
Wow.
not good at that, right? I was.
You just mentioned that. I remember typing that as a kid on a calculator. Do you remember? You could type numbers and it would spell Shell Oil.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't.
I wanted
That's so
to be
weird.
in one of the corner offices, but I didn't know how to get there. Right.
That's
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah.
What, you said Tulane was going to, be law school. What actually drove you to, steer into acting? I mean, did you
When I
always
was
want to?
modeling, they had an
But
audition.
was it always in the back of your head that it was something?
Always. When I was modeling, they said, "You want to go on this audition?" I said, "Yes." I won the role. And then those people went up to New York and I decided, well, one of the modeling agents from New York came down, Wilhelmina's husband from Wilhelmina Agency. I don't know if that's still anymore. And I asked him, "Do you think I could make it in New York?" And he goes, "Sure." And what are you going to say? No, but he goes, "Sure." And then I went to Ford, to Elite, another agency, and to Wilhelmina. I decided to go with Elite because it had a connection to acting. It was the first acting agency that actually partnered with, it was the first modeling agency that partnered with an acting agency, J. Michael Bloom. And at that point in time, remember, models were being used for commercials and stuff, like acting.
Yeah.
And so I went into this woman, Davian Littlefield, and I said, "Hey, Davian, I want to go over and meet the people over at Michael Bloom." And she said, "All right. How about next week?" I said, "How about tomorrow?" Now you have to look at the timeline, right? I got there March 1st and I'm going in there right away. I went over there. They said, "Why don't you take some acting classes?" I said, "I'm already good." And then I've been doing theater in Texas and I'm already good. And then I did like a piece for them and they said, "Well, you are." And then they sent me out, right? I
I
mean,
love that. You were certainly determined.
I don't know. Determined sounds kind of harsh. I was just like excited.
Yeah, driven, but that's good. I mean,
I
you made
wanted
it.
to act.
But to make something happen like that in 1 month, that's
I would
you
like to
had a
argue
path.
that I didn't make it happen, that it happened. But I was just very lucky that I like kept on going forward. When I'd have an idea, I would just say, "Okay, why not?"
Love it. Love it. Esmerito asked, "Tell us about the real James Mitchell. Palmer was gruff, but I hear James was a hoot."
James Mitchell, one of the sweetest people I've ever met. He
Was he a hoot?
he was, I would not call him a hoot. What I would say is that he was funny, right? Like I would come on the set and then he would not remember his lines. So he would write them out. He would put them on a back of the plate that was on the mantelpiece. And he would walk over there and he would examine it like he was looking at how fine a plate that was. It would have the words on it that he needed to know. He would read them off there, put the plate, he was just good. He just was very clever, and the stuff that he and Jillian would work out, Palmer and Daisy, the wonderful bits that they would do. They were just they were wonderful together. So yeah. And he was so dear to me. I remember when I was out in LA and I called him up and I said, "James, I'm supposed to go to some of these parties." And I didn't have anybody to ask. I didn't know anybody in LA, right? And he's, you kind of, he's like, "Okay, like her dad, right?" "Well, I would think like a little black dress would be nice." Right? It was always fun like that. He never said, I
I,
don't know anything about that. Taylor's just, mm-mm, right?
I love that.
I
Was it a
know.
tough decision when you left in '84?
No, I think that was when I went to, I had been getting back with Cliff quite a lot. Like every time we'd break up, we'd get back together again. And I told them, I said, it's like you're putting me in pantyhose that's too small. I don't know if you recognize that, but like if your pantyhose is too small, the crotch like hangs down and it's just so uncomfortable. And it's just like, right. And, and I just wanted to do something else. And and I stayed at James's house out in the valley, and he let me stay there until I found it. He was like my family. I'd stay there until I had a place to live. Oh, he was just so wonderful. He wasn't there; he was in New York, but just go ahead and stay there, Taylor. Right? It
Did
was,
you
yeah.
like LA?
I loved LA. In fact, I just reconnected with my friend Mary McDonough. She was on the Waltons, actually, and I just reconnected with her. My agent introduced me to Mary McDonough and Catherine Hurd, who are two people that he also represented, and we became fast friends. And having all of that time to hike and to go out to lunch and the funds that I already had, that I could, be able to live prosperously out there. And then I did a night rider, and then I did an Oldsmobile commercial that ran for 2 years. So that gave me money coming in the checkbook,
That's a nice deal.
and that's when I met my husband, my future husband.
I love that. Well, one of the fans had brought up Knight Rider. What do you recall about Mr. Hasselhoff?
I'm going to tell you this funny story, and that is we went out to after we shot the show, we went out, and he was like really nervous that he was going to be recognized, and he's married and stuff, right? So I said, there's nothing there, so I guess I wouldn't worry about it. So we went out to this place, and they did not recognize him, but they recognized me.
I love that. That is fantastic.
That was so funny, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because there are people who worry about those things, and then
Well, he was
nothing.
a star, but I guess maybe not in that neighborhood.
That is so funny.
It was funny. Probably the only place in the world that could have happened, but it did happen that night.
Yeah, but hysterical. Yeah. Luther was asking, what was it like to be part of another popular pairing when you joined Another World and worked with Thomas Ian Griffith?
That was different for me. I never really connected with that show. Like all my children was just right around the corner. It was at 67th and Columbus. And I would have to go and meet a car at 6 o'clock in the morning. And then we would drive like in this limousine, like 8 of us, we would drive in this limo to get out to Brooklyn. And then I would be out there until I shot my scenes, and I may not shoot my scenes until 5 o'clock at night. And so that was a long day for me. I remember one time I came home, and they actually were paying me quite a lot of money, which brought my pay scale up. I'm very grateful to them for that. But I remember one time coming across on Central Park. Yeah, coming across on Central Park, and I may be wrong as far as my directions are, but anyway, Bendel's was still open, and I was in a limo, and I said, "Stop the car!" It was the first time that a store had been open that I was able to get out and spend some of that money. And all of the isolation that we've had with COVID, it was kind of like that. Like there was never anything open. I would go to the studio. I would have plans with people. I would have to call them and cancel. It was a very lonely year. Yeah.
Yeah, Brooklyn. It's far out there. That's where As the World Turns taped. So
yeah,
I know the car ride well.
Yeah. And it was such a long day, and there wasn't, It's only
There
so
was
much you
nothing to
can
do.
do. Yeah.
Nothing
I
to do
started
out
working
there.
out with Thomas, though. We'd go to this nearby track, and we would run, and he would do push-ups and stuff like that, and we would work out and then come back. And the favorite food was pumpernickel bagel with American cheese and yellow mustard. One day we were going to be there so long, we went to Coney Island.
Oh, wow.
I had time to like do all of the roller
The
coasters.
rides. Yeah.
Right?
I love that.
It was hard. It was hard for me.
Is it true you were in a scene with Liberace on Another World?
I might have been. I don't remember that.
Yes, somebody said that. I was surprised. I didn't recall him being on the show, but somebody will know. Somebody will know that answer. You returned to Pine Valley and then left again, and that was to have your children, right? And one of your children when you left.
Yes, they were surprised that I left. And
what? They didn't expect you to leave?
No, because I don't know whether I'd just come back or something, but I think they thought that I would, I was an established character. I loved what I was doing. And I just think they thought that I would just be there. But, when Eli and I got married and when we had the discussion about I believe that there should be a person at home raising the children. And I said, why don't you do it? And he said, I'm not going to do it. And and he worked in Chicago. And I sometimes look back at this decision and I thought, what were you thinking, Taylor? Right. But I just thought, well, then you're the person. Right. And I'm really glad that I was at home. I'm really glad that I raised my kids. I'm just really glad that happened that way, that we could afford it.
Was there something, because I think I read something about you seeing how Susan sadly had to miss a lot of things.
Yeah, I remember her being on the phone one day with one of her kids. And I just thought, I hadn't really thought about that. Like a mother's heart, how she would yearn to talk to her children, And of course, that was one instance. I'm not sure if that was the whole scenario.
Right.
But as I have told you before, my mind is very active at imagining things. And so I just thought, that would be, and being an at-home mom, one of the hardest things that you can possibly ever choose to do. So, and I missed being on All My Children, but the die was cast.
Mm-hmm. Did either of your kids follow in your footsteps?
No, but there are not as many things to do as there used to be. A lot of things are done on the internet, and a lot of like the ways to be able to make your living as an actor are not as plentiful, at least to my understanding, as they were when I was first doing it.
Think of how many soaps were in New York when you started. There's no reason.
Right.
There's nothing now. There's nothing in New York like there was when you when you arrived in New York, there were probably at that time 8 or 9 still, maybe even, more.
Right.
Yeah.
It was good living. Yeah. It was a way to be able to live in New York and be able to make your living. Hate to make it just about economics. Or you could get a national. I remember I was in a play with Judith Ivey and Christine Esterbrook, written by Wally Shawn, right? And I did this play, and I remember Judy Ivey said, "Do you want to hear what my warm-ups are before I go on stage?" And I'm like an eager stage actress, and I'm like, "Yes." And she went, "Money, money," and I thought, "That's right." And then she had just gotten a national commercial, and she was so excited about it. Right?
I love that.
Theater, living on a theater salary is not that easy.
Right.
And you might make a lot of money, but then those gaps when you're not working. So, yeah. So it was, and then
that is a great response.
Yeah.
I mean, a great.
Yeah, I ended up making my life when my living when my kids were young. I ended up making a living doing voiceovers. So doing things like Nature Made vitamins and State Farm insurance, like really wonderful. Again, I got very lucky, very, very, very lucky.
And so easy to do from, you don't have to get dressed.
Well,
Voiceover.
so in those days, you would go to the studio, you would meet the people, you would take their direction, you'd be in a little booth, and then you would, yeah, it was great.
Do you have a favorite stage role?
Oh, golly, I really should have reviewed do you have my resume there, Alan?
I don't have it in front of me.
My friend Amy Aquino is really good at, she can just, go out down her resume just like that. But there was a play that I did. In fact, it was the last theater that I did. And it's something that I had wanted to do. Like I had always wanted to work at the Actors Theater of Louisville, which is now called the Humana Festival. And I did. What's really great about it is it's new plays and they are done full tilt with all of the production values completely wonderful. And it's like a whole week of people flocking to the city to see the plays. No one had ever seen them before. And it was a 2-person play. And I had the majority of the lines. I had auditioned in Chicago with my favorite director there, and she called me in for the role. And I auditioned for her. I won the role, and I went to Louisville. And the thing is, I think we had a 3-week rehearsal period where we had to. It's very short rehearsal period. I would say 86% of the lines. I also had to bake a pie while I was saying the lines. And the storyline was that I was a dancer who had given up my career. My husband and I decided to adopt a baby because I wanted to have a child. Decided to adopt a baby, and adopting that baby had ruined our relationship. So the girl was the only family that I had. And then she started to have memories. Oh, it's called Memory House. She started having memories of her birth mother. I think she was from the Soviet Union. And that I felt that loss too, because she was my daughter, but now she wanted to be the daughter of her birth mother.
We will get to what you're currently doing, but would you still like to act in plays or on TV if the opportunity presented itself?
I live in such a way where if something comes my way, it's like, all right, I'm
You
totally
can be flexible.
Open. Yeah, I'm just totally open to, I hate to say the universe, but it's like whatever is in store. It's like, okay, I'm up for that. So
I know the fans would love it, and the fans were asking, what do you remember about your role in the film Hannah Free, working with Sharon Gless?
Yes, that was really great. Claudia Allen wrote that. It came from a play that she wrote, and it was kind of an unforgiving role. It was a role of a woman who was raised by 2 gay women and was mad about the whole thing, right? So she was a prude and just very uptight about everything, and angry about everything. So, but it was surely a lot of fun playing with Sharon Gless. We took that to the what is the name of the festival? It's in San Francisco, and it's an independent film festival, the Frameline Festival, and we were the closing film of the Frameline Festival. It was a wonderful. Her play had been groundbreaking. I believe it was done at Victory Garden and in Chicago, and it was groundbreaking because people weren't talking about gay relationships. And so it was, at the time, it was one of those things that was really important to put on stage. And then eventually they made it into a movie.
I
I
love
got
that.
a chance to play in that.
And she's a great actress to work opposite.
Sharon Glass?
Yeah, you know, I
Yes,
could see.
absolutely.
I love watching her work.
Yeah.
What tell us about what prompted you to go back to school?
You know, when I turned 50, I am 68 now. I finally
You
tell
look
people my real.
fantastic.
Oh, right. That's why I tell people my real age, because they say things like that, right? But I used to lie about my age. But when I turned 60, I thought, yeah, I look good for 60. So I'm going to start telling people how old I am. So I was feeling very low in energy, and I did not know what to do. And so I started uh, looking in like those kind of newspaper magazines. It
Mm-hmm.
had something to do with like health, and then I just kept on asking, show what is wrong with me, because I would go to the doctor and they weren't able to analyze anything. And so I sat next to a woman who's a doctor, who's also a holistic practitioner. And I sat next to her and I just said, hey, I have this problem with my energy, and do you think you can help me with it? And she said yes. So I started to go to her, and she put me on, there weren't any medications, but she put me on supplements and let's see, and bioidentical hormones. And so she just tweaked what was going on with my body so that my body started healing itself, right? Which is the benefit of supplements. And so I was on those supplements maybe for 3 years, and now my thyroid is completely okay. And then I gave up sugar. And when I gave up sugar, I realized I did not know how to eat. And so I had to learn how to eat. And I started looking.
Actually, when you say you gave up sugar, is it sugar um, in anything you eat, or just like, sweet sugar or?
Sugar, I at that point in time, I made like a hard line around white sugar. And when you put a hard line around white sugar, you don't eat cookies, you don't eat cake, you don't eat ice cream. It eliminates a lot of stuff, right? And those were all things that once I would start to eat, I couldn't stop eating them. I had some kind of, I guess I would term it, allergic reaction to it. I just could not stop eating it. And I would plan, when I would go to lunch, I would look at the dessert menu. I would plan raspberry pie. And then I would kind of try and calculate how many calories that was going to be. And then I would eat like a small salad to go with the feature, which was the raspberry pie. And they say a lot of times that people who are overweight not because they're overeaters, but because they're undereaters. And I believe that that was my case, that I was always trying to mess around with calories so that I didn't gain any weight. But I ended up having very, very low energy and feeling, even when I was on the show, I remember, because I would ride my bike to the show, I'd kind of think that calories in, calories out, and it's surely much better if you use more calories than you're eating, right? So I think probably being in the modeling industry too, I got messed up around that. I think I had a tendency to be messed up around it anyway. But so anyway, I went to this thing. It's called the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, and I learned about eating. And I learned how to coach people around eating, and I learned how to tell them how to eat for their body. And because of my experience and the hopelessness that I had, I just thought, well, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to teach middle-aged women how to eat for their body. And that's what I've been doing for the last, I don't know, 10, 12 years or something. That's what I've been doing. I give people a way to eat so that they can stop dieting, to give them freedom, right? Because I think a lot of people are uneducated. A lot of people learn by dieting, but dietings are not, you cannot sustain that, right? So I remember I went with my friend Barbie. She wanted to do this cleanse for like a week. I did it for 2 days and I'm like, I can't do this anymore. It was so low in calories. I just thought I was going insane. And it was all juices and everything. And I just couldn't do it. And I just can't do it. I like to eat. I've learned how much to eat. I've learned
I'm
when
with you there.
yeah. I just have learned how to do it. And it has made my life so much simpler. Thank you for asking. But I'm passionate about it, right? Because it has given me freedom that I never had before.
What's the biggest misconception that you think people coming to you have?
That it will be no work. Sorry, right? So people who are desperate are the best kind of people because they're willing to learn and take the actions. You know, everybody wants it to be something simple and, you know, like, well, I'll just eat protein bars all day long. Maybe, you know, but your body's going to start dying. So I want to be healthy my whole life. I want to feel energy and vibrancy my whole life. I mean, I am making choices, and those choices are for me. I don't know if they're for everybody, but those are things that I place important above other things.
And what's the first thing you do when somebody comes to you? Sort of assess what they've been doing?
I just talk to them about, I talk to them about what they're doing, get an idea about whether or not the way I work will work for them. You know, there's something that's called a strategy session. And then, and they can decide whether or not they want to learn. And then a lot of times people, it's kind of funny because people learn and then they might call me up and set up another session just to tweak it because they've forgotten something, you know, but most people that I've worked with that have done the work now know how to have even blood sugar. They know how much to eat. I mean, the servings that we're given are so large. Of course, people are gaining weight, you know. And when you
we in the U.S. the servings are enormous.
Yeah, and don't even get me started with the chemicals that they put in stuff, and the fact that junk food is manufactured so that we can't stop eating it. It's like, where are the guidelines? How come they're not protecting us? They don't do this in Europe, you know? They're putting chemicals in our food. It's just so I have to learn how to eat so that I don't ignite those cravings.
Interesting.
And that's my choice, right? I'm pretty steady in what I eat and how much I eat. I never feel like I'm on a diet. I never feel like I'm restricted. I always feel like I have a lot of choices and I can choose what I'm going to eat. You know, sometimes I cobble things together. I have personal preferences, you know. I think everybody does.
Absolutely. What's been the most rewarding aspect of this for you? This new career path?
You know, I actually had something just happen with somebody that I'm working with. I forgot to bring the apron that they made me. I forgot to bring it with me. I thought, I could show it, but so I was working with the mom to be able to help her be able to learn how to eat. And then great thing about working with a mom is that then they can pass that on to their family, right? They had an accident in their family that really was traumatic. And because I do coaching also, she called me up and she said, can you help me work through this? And then we came up with a plan where her family, because one of them was injured terribly, her family could cook together, right? That was a way that they could be together because they couldn't do it in the way that they had been able to before. And then from that, they started using the recipes that I had given her. And then from there, they started to cook for their friends. And from there, they started to cook for like their neighbors. And they had at one point in time, I think she said that they had like a meal for like 80 people, all introducing the concept of clean food, whole food, delicious food, right? Organic food, all, and that's the thing. It's just that little pebble that goes into the water, and like one person can affect another person. That is my goal. That's my mission statement, that I can teach one person how to eat for their body so that hopefully they can change and then they can affect others. Because there's no way that you can go against the establishment, right? The only thing that you can do is you can just introduce people to choices.
I love that. That's fantastic. So much love coming your way. Gorgeous. Wow, would never have known she's 68. You look wonderful. Classic beauty.
Thank you.
A lot of love. Looking back on getting that job in April of that year, is there one or two things you wish somebody had told you before you ventured into the business?
I think that no one could have told me anything. At that age, you know everything. And I think that the people who loved me, who were part of my storyline, and the people who are part of that ABC family, they taught me by loving me. I think that was, and accepting me, so they just taught me a lot.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing when you can enter a work environment, no matter where, acting, and you get that kind of, warmth, love.
Yes.
Education in some respects, not that they were there to educate, but you do.
It was an opportunity to act every day. Whoever has that, right?
Yeah.
Like when I first got on there, the producer, Jorn Winther, he's not here, he died, but I started to take acting classes, and he stopped in the hallway and he said, I was going to fire you. He was from Denmark. I was going to fire you, but they stopped me, and now you're good. Right? Probably a terrible accent. I'm so sorry to bastardize that, but they gave me the chance to learn. I was so nervous when I first got on there, and I didn't have the experience to learn like these pages and pages of lines, right?
Yeah.
And people worked with me, gave me the time, were kind to me. I remember when I was in Nina's bed, and I remember the first time that I snuggled because it was cold, and the director was like, right? I was actually like being there as the character in that room, and she was just so pleased. It was an immersion, the best immersion class that you could ever have. You're being paid for it, right? And it was just
you couldn't pay for that education, right?
No way. There's no way.
Yeah, absolutely.
That ever happened. Well, my children, my husband, that kind of stuff. But as far as the first thing that happened that rocketed me to a different life, I think that I think you could just point back to that.
Absolutely. Taylor, it's a pleasure to meet you. If any of the people listening have questions about what Taylor is doing now, the link is up on my website as well. I know some fans had some diet questions they were asking, so you may hear from some of them. Such a pleasure to talk to you today.
Absolutely. I have a Nina Cortlandt Facebook page too. I put some old clips up there at one point in time. I don't know. I haven't gone on in a while, but I put some old clips of Nina scenes, and I'll try and go on there and see if it's still up and running very much, because
you should, because the fans would love that.
The old scenes, they're put on there from videotapes, so they're not crisp and clear the way we're
just like what's up on YouTube. But thank God it is, thank God we can watch, because
Oh,
It's a
they'd be
shame that
better off probably just going to YouTube and looking for them there. But
yeah, but you might have posted some that, you know, they have
I
that are not up
reminisce
on.
for many moons. I would stay up late at night and I would just go, oh, that was when Nina was in the courtroom and she fell to her knees when she figured out that Daisy was her mom. That was a great
It's got to be fun to watch and look back.
Oh, so much fun. So much fun. Thank you, Alan.
You
I
are
totally
so welcome.
enjoyed our hour together. Thank you so much.
You are so welcome. You stay well.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in today. Thank you, Taylor Miller, for stopping by. Join me Friday when another All My Children actress, Esther Tablanche, joins me live. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel if you have yet to do so. Turn on the notifications for reminders of all upcoming shows. Have a great afternoon, everybody, and I will see you on Friday. Bye.